Hi guys, in this tutorial we're going to take a look at how to make a surface from an image. I'm going to go ahead and start up a large template in inches. And the command that we're going to be using is found under Surface, Heightfield from Image. So if you start that up, it'll browse to wherever it is on the computer that's browsing to. You're going to be using your own images for this, but these are just some examples. So I'm going to start off with the really basic example. And when I select the image, it asks me for the first corner. So I'm going to turn on my snap for now. I'm going to start it at the origin, and you'll notice that it's constrained to the aspect ratio of that image. So that image was very long and narrow, and so this is sort of forcing me to create an object that's long and narrow as well. So it asks me for the second corner or length. I'm just going to left click to set that there, and it pops up a dialog box which is asking me for number of sample points and height. And I'm just going to accept what this says for now and click OK. And what it does is it creates a surface, which you'll be able to see better here if I go into the rendered mode. Creates a surface based on the light and dark values of the image. So if I bring in a preview of that image, you can see that the darkest part of the image is right on the very base of this surface. Okay, and as we move through the shades of gray, each shade of gray sort of corresponds to a different height value until we get to white, which is at the very top here. You can see this more clearly in the front view. So there's our black surface, or there's our black part of the image, and then as we're moving through the gray, we get to the white. And what dictates how tall this is the value that we set when we run the command. So I'm going to rerun this again now, and I'm going to use the same image just to show you what I'm talking about here. So I'm going to pull out again, snap to set that. And so here it's asking me for the height. And this is a value in the units of the file. So in other words, in this case, each of these boxes is 1 unit, and so this is 5 inches tall. If I were to set that down to 2, for instance, that would create a surface that ended at the second box there. The number of sample points is essentially how many sample points it takes when it's looking at this image. So if I'm saying 50 by 50, it's going to sample 50 across this way and 50 across this way. So having a higher value here is obviously going to create something that's closer to the original. It's also going to create a much heavier surface, which means it's going to take longer to calculate. So maybe I'll just set this down to 20 to show you the difference for both of these. And again, I've got my height set to 2. So it creates a second surface, and you can see how that second surface is now at a value of 2 here. And if I look in a shaded view, you can see the difference in terms of the lines. I've got much fewer lines running across on this surface than I do in this example here because of my sample point setting. I'm going to just undo those and go back in, do a height field again. That was with sort of a discrete sectioning of black to white. What about with something that's a continuous tone, like an image like this, for instance? If I were to use this, and maybe I should have set that to a higher value here. So I'll go back up to 5, and I'll also increase my sample points a little bit. 50 by 50 is a pretty decent value, I think, in general. So if I pull up a preview of that image, you can see what it's done here. So again, the white or the lighter areas end up being higher on the surface. The darker areas recede into that ground plane. And you'll also notice that in this case, I don't really have a definite black or a definite white, and so it doesn't quite go all the way down to the bottom, and it doesn't quite go up to the very height that I specified in my original dialog there. So grays are always going to be in between those two extremes. I'm going to just right-click to repeat that command. I'll just show you one more example. These are all things that I created in Photoshop. So you could just create a fade of something and then import it that way, and that will work as well. So here's another example of a surface, and again, the preview for it looks like that. Okay, so the dark areas again are receding in, the light areas are sort of higher up. So let's see what happens when we import an actual image of something. I'm gonna use this image here of chocolate. Again, it's constrained, so the image itself is not a square, and therefore this the surface that it's going to create won't be a square either. Ultimately, we do want it to be a square, and so we're going to end up cutting it afterwards. But just to start with, actually, I'm going to set this to 23 because the blocks that we're going to be using are 23 inches across, 23 inches square. So I can just type 23, and it'll give me a 23-inch in its shortest dimension afterwards. So sample points, I'm going to just maybe, I'll leave that at 5 and 5 and a height of 5, 50 and 50 and 5. Actually, it looks like, yeah, that's 23. So this is a little bit longer, obviously. This is going to be, I'll end up trimming that afterwards. So if I were to look at this in top view, in a shaded mode right now, or in a rendered mode rather, that sort of approximates what we had as the original image right here. And it's not until we start to rotate away from that you start to see what's happening, right? It's a surface that's being generated that way. And maybe I'll just show you a couple more examples using this same image. I'll just eyeball this. Actually, I guess I can just use that value again. And I'm going to just change my sampling here. So I'm going to do 20 by 20, which will be pretty low resolution, and then a we'll go to a 200 by 200. And it'll take a little bit longer to create. But you can definitely see the detail that you pick up as you go to a higher setting. And that detail is sort of these striations in the image here that are getting picked up. And again, if you want to see these things more easily, it's best to go into a rendered view so that you're looking at just the surfaces. And there you can see what's happening. Okay, I think I'm going to cut this here, and I'll see you guys at the next video.